Today we announced the closing of a $1.65 billion PIPE. And a few cool notes to add about that. First is, in addition to Multicoin's investment, I actually invested $25 million personally into the vehicle as well, showing really my excitement and dedication and commitment to the opportunity. Second is, we got this money raised in 2 weeks. The demand for this thing was off the charts. We had to cut a bunch of people back. And we just recognized that like institutional investors around the world want to have access to Solana. They want to have access to a company and a management team that knows the Solana ecosystem and industry, and that can ultimately do interesting things in that position, in that role. And so we're very, very fortunate and excited to be here. The company is super excited as well. It's a NASDAQ listed company, and the ticker is FORD, F-O-R-D. Today we announced.
So that was the announcement by 𝗕𝗁 𝗪𝗧 around the new Solana digital asset treasury vehicle. And on that announcement, you can see the Solana price is actually running. Today, I want to dig deep into digital asset treasuries in general. I want to dig into this specific digital asset treasury company and how high this could actually push up the Solana price. And then we've got a massive banter for you today. I've got Jordi and Jose here. We're going to be talking Athena, we're going to be talking Pump.fun, we're going to be talking Solana Debt, we're going to be talking Avalanche Debt. We've got a massive show here for you today. So, Friday Banter, big show today. Let's get the show on the road, guys. You know, I've been very vocal about the digital asset treasury companies lately because they've had this kind of complacency that says all we need to do is buy and hold tokens, and that way we're going to get Wall Street to buy our tokens, our shares. But the reality is that it's actually not like that. And if you look at all the digital asset treasury companies, you look at like SBET, and you look at that's SBET. Let's look at BMNR, which is Tommy Lee's one, Bitmain Emerging Technologies. Again, what you can see is that the charts are telling you that if you think that you're going to just buy assets, buy ETH, hold ETH, stake ETH, and you think that Wall Street's going to be dumb enough to actually invest in your vehicle, then you got to think again. And that's why when I heard about this DAT company that actually came out yesterday, I was quite vocal about how excited I was about this DAT company, because unlike all the other DAT companies, which are actually starting to trade it actually under like the assets that they have on their balance sheets. If you look at like the 𝗏 Treasury Company or the 𝗬ie Treasury Company or all the other treasury companies, they're actually all trading at discounts to the actual asset that they're holding. And now the market's basically saying to these guys, we're not going to buy your asset. We're not going to buy your shares if all you're going to do is just hold these assets. And that could be a massive risk to the cycle, because if we're counting on treasury companies to power these assets, then we need to make sure that Wall Street actually want these assets. When Wall Street starts telling you that they don't want to buy your shares, that should be a massive warning sign. And we're even seeing companies like SBET making announcements that they're actually going to have to be buying their own shares on the market to try and get the price up back towards net asset value. But then 𝗕𝗁 𝗪𝗧 made the announcement yesterday that Multicoin is building or is involved in what is the new Solana digital asset treasury company. The ticker on the NASDAQ is FORD, F-O-R-D. And what it is, it's a digital asset treasury company with a difference, right? Because unlike the previous digital asset treasury companies, MSTR, MicroStrategy, SharpLink, which is SBET, BMNR, these treasury companies are actually all saying we're going to buy ETH, we're going to hold ETH, we're going to stake ETH, and nothing else. The Solana one is slightly different. The Solana one says, look, we're going to be doing a whole lot of things, right? We're going to be acquiring discounted locked Solana. We're going to be engaging on-chain activities and participating in DeFi, which is a highly lucrative space, and they're going to have a good relationship with the Solana ecosystem, and those relationships can strike major deals with big Solana protocols. So instead of just being a listed entity on the NASDAQ that buys and holds Solana and stakes Solana, these guys are saying, no, we're going to buy Solana, we're going to stake Solana, we're going to arbitrage Solana, we're going to loan Solana to other protocols, and we're going to get token stakes in those protocols. We're going to be buying cheap locked Solana. What they're creating here is they're creating almost like a V2 of the treasury companies. And the V2 of the treasury companies is very much like an on-chain, like a Solana foundation, but that lives in TradFi. And it's not a non-profit foundation like most of these ETH foundations and Solana foundations are. It's a for-profit foundation. It's a company that has a lot of capital that is going to put Solana to work to grow the Solana protocol. And it's going to give the returns to the company's shareholders. And I think this is like the first revolution in these treasury companies. I also think it's probably the first one that's being, well, not the first one, because I think that the 𝗬cie Treasury Company, the 𝗕𝗫𝗫, have exactly the same vision. And maybe even the 𝗏 one have exactly the same vision. Although 𝗏 was very much like, we'll run validators and stuff like that. The big thing here, though, for me, is that it seems like what these guys are teasing is they're teasing that Solana may actually create its own stablecoin, which will be used on Solana. And that interest will be used to reward the digital asset treasury company and to buy more Solana. So Tushar Jain, also from Multicoin Capital, says, one of the best things about Solana's culture is adopting good ideas from other ecosystems. Hyperliquid's idea to encourage stablecoin issuers to buy HYPE with USDH is a very powerful way to drive revenue. Why should Circle keep all the interest from the USDC on Solana? And now what they're basically saying is either we'll launch our own one, or actually I think they're going to launch their own one. So this is massive, massive, massive news for Solana. Also the people that are behind this. And I think I read a tweet around this, which kind of says, look, you got the best crypto asset manager on earth, which is 𝗕𝗕cie. You've got the best high frequency trader and arbitrage trader, which is Jump. And you've got the best visionaries from a VC perspective on Solana, which is Multicoin Capital. And so when you put this all together, you're finally seeing a very, very, very serious treasury company that is launched, and now starting to put $1 billion worth of buying pressure on Solana. And that is causing the SOL price to actually break out and explode. And I mean, it looks like there's only hot air between where we are now, 237, and 264 is probably the next stop. And then the last stop is 295 before we get into all-time highs. I'm glad to say that, I mean, if you've been watching our shows, you know that we've called this absolutely perfectly. I want to show you, like, we made a show. I think hardest was at the 5th of August. What date was it? Was that show that I made when I said this is the bottom for Solana? Well, I think it was the 5th of August. Yeah, let's have a look here. Let's quickly just have a look here. It was here's run show. Let's have a look here. I said something like, Solana holders, I've got good news for you guys. I think that was around the 5th of August. And that was effectively, here we go. Solana, it was the 5th of August. And I said, guys, this is the bottom. This must be the bottom. That was, the 12th of August. And you can see that if you look at the 12th of August over here on the Solana chart, 12th of August. I think that was the local bottom. Okay, maybe it wasn't exactly. Yeah, 12th of August was here. And I said, I think that's the bottom. So anyway, I'm glad to say that this is happening. I am going to get 𝗕𝗁 onto our show next week. And this was for me coming at in a period where I was quite, what's the word I'm looking for? I was quite disheartened by these treasury companies. I really thought that these treasury companies were not going to make it. I do see now that there's a few treasury companies, but one in particular that's trying to raise $1 billion on Avalanche. I really wonder whether it'll be a great sign if they actually land up raising this, because I have a lot of questions around treasury companies. And I think today we're going to answer a lot of those questions. We're going to talk about the SOL Treasury Company. We're going to talk about Pump.fun. We're going to talk about Athena. We're going to talk about a whole lot of other things, because today is Friday. And on Fridays, we banter. And today I've got two amazing guests for you on the banter. But before we do, I just want to remind you that our Friday banters, as always, brought to you by NordVPN. If you're not already using a VPN, then what are you even doing here? Honestly, you're exposing your IP address to governments? Do you think it's safe and fair to expose our IP address to hackers and governments? No way. And you can easily change that, because to change that, literally, all you have to do, and I'll actually show you how easy it is to install a VPN. And you'll actually, when you see it happening, that is when you'll click and you'll go, oh, I really need a VPN. And it's not only just to watch movies in different jurisdictions that you can't watch in your jurisdiction. So this here is what a VPN actually looks like, right? And when you look at the VPN, Right now, I'm not connected, but I can connect and I can pretend to be anywhere I want in the world. So if I want to pretend that I am in Portugal, right? I'm not going to do it, because if I do, I'm going to cut myself off. Oh, well, let me disconnect quickly before it's connected. Then from that point on, it will think that I am in Portugal. And then I can surf as if I'm Portuguese, which means that no hacker, no government will see that, hey, this is a South African guy or a Portuguese guy or whatever actually surfing. Guys, protecting your crypto costs you guys. Okay, are you ready for this? Drum roll, please. The amount is so small, it's actually like negligible. $3 a month. And you get a money day guarantee, and you get extra 4 months free. For God's sake, please go to this link over here. Just go to the link here and just get yourself a VPN and protect yourself. Anyway, guys, without further ado, as I said, I've got a lot of questions today. I've got a lot of questions about treasury vehicles, a whole lot of other questions. I've got two amazing guests with us. I've got Jordi, I've got Jose. None of them are new to the channel, all good friends of the channel. Guys, welcome. Good to see you again. I guess a good place to start is digital asset treasury companies. What am I missing here? I'm invested in quite a lot of them, and they're all starting to trade under net asset value. And now I'm kind of asking myself a question. What exactly is the point of these digital asset treasury companies? Jordi, have you got a thesis here?
Ran, look, it's like you go to the club and there's a lot of girls, and you got the hot girls, you got girls with look good, they have a lot of makeup on, but you know, maybe when everything's off, it's not that good. So that's kind of what's happening. You got a mix of stuff. Some of them are doing well, it makes sense. Some of them are just trying to cash grab. So you know,
okay, wait, hold on. Help me out with the maths. I understand that they're all copying the MicroStrategy playbook, right? So they all saw MicroStrategy playbook and they said, hey, we can tap into financial markets and we can leverage traditional markets and raise money for crypto assets. Got it. But what I've also realized is that MicroStrategy increased their MNAV when they tapped into debt markets, when they tapped into fixed income markets and gave fixed income markets crypto upside. And ever since he stopped doing that, his MNAV has been compressing. Most of these DATs that are coming online are basically saying, look, we're not touching fixed income. We're not touching debt. We're only issuing equity. So I did a little bit of math and I was like, okay, hold on a second. If I issue equity and I use the equity to buy SOL or ETH or whatever it is, and then I issue more equity to buy more SOL at a higher price, and then I issue more equity to buy more SOL at a higher price, and I'm not taking out any debt, then I don't get what the original, assuming the price goes up, the original holders are continually diluted. What have I missed?
Right. No, it's even worse because once you get outside of Bitcoin, you know, you could say Saylor was just pushing the price. He always says he's going to keep buying the top. He doesn't care. He'll buy the top. He'll top blast because it's about sending a message. Bitcoin is a reserve asset. He's going to make the world, you know, appreciate it because it's big enough. But for other assets, you're just top blasting and then there's no real follow through on what you're doing. And in terms of like tapping up debt markets, obviously, unless something is extremely liquid, I mean, Michael Saylor's company could be in the S&P 500, right? Like that is, it's that big. But these other ones, I mean, they're not going to have liquid options markets and debt markets. Some of them might get there, of course, and then it gets, you know, more interesting. But there's many problems. There's many warts. There's many issues here.
So I'm assuming you're not a big investor in these DATs, right?
Done a few of them that, you know, the terms seem to be, you know, decent, but I've been trying to stay away from most of them. I think most of them just don't make a lot of sense. The thesis that there is a equity buyer investor out there, whether it's a hedge fund, whether it's retail that doesn't know how to access, let's say BNB, and you know they know Binance is a big thing and they want to get access to it. You know, we did the BNB one. Maybe there's certain things here and there. You know, we could go through it one by one. That makes sense, but it's clearly gotten overdone, right? It's not my favorite meta. I don't know about Jose. Is it your favorite meta?
No, it never was. I mean, I don't find it super interesting. I definitely think on the MNAVs, it's mainly the ETH ones actually that are trading under MNAV. If you look at like a weighted MNAV chart, I think the SOL ones are all SOL and Bitcoin ones are all pretty much trading above MNAV, and like the ETH ones are really getting crushed, which is interesting. I think there's just more of them, and there isn't a clear winner. My take generally is like we've done a few of them too. I think when there's a good manager, and you're getting in or around MNAV with not too many shenanigans with lock tokens at weird prices and stuff, they're like pretty good risk return.
But just explain to me because I'm trying to understand. I understood the return to come from the treasury company taking debt and then repaying the debt holders and making the equity holders wealthier because they're not expecting a significant return. Just explain the maths to me of these guys of investing in a treasury company. Explain to me where they could get more upside than just token upside. How could they compound token upside? The way I see it, you give them money, they use the money to buy the token, and then they stake the token, and that's it.
I mean, selling their shares to greater fools at 2x MNAV on the market, is the
but there's no greater fool. There's no greater fools. I mean,
there's been a good amount of greater fools. Like, I mean, not right now, especially on the ETH ones, but there's like I mean, there's these DAT deals have done pretty well for most people that have been involved in them. There's been like a good amount of buyers in them. I do think they're going to need to get more creative with capital markets, and also do some interesting stuff on chain, especially as rates come down. I think these like carry trades where you're borrowing money from TradFi and then doing some yield farming on chain, especially as like the base rate on chain goes up, and it's normally like inversely correlated with, well, normally is probably a bit of a stretch, but has been sort of historically mostly inversely correlated with the T-bill rates. I think you'll be able to do some interesting stuff, and these things will basically become like on-chain yield farming vehicles, like and I think that's like somewhat interesting. I'm sure some of them will be able to meme that deserves like a big boost to MNAV. Like Tom Lee was saying that the ETH 3% staking yield should have him trade at 1.6 MNAV just by itself, right? Because of the multiple on the yield. Like people will tell all kinds of stories, and I think in a bull market those
what happens
work. I don't know. What do you think?
What happens to that yield or to that thesis when the ETFs allow staking? And that's like around the corner. Like we kind of know that the SEC is going to approve a SOL ETF very soon, and we kind of think that that's going to be the first one with staking. And then from that point on, the ETH ETFs will also have staking. So then the question becomes, well, then what's the angle? Because you can just stake, you can just buy the ETF, and
they just go out on the risk curve. They'll just have to go out on the risk curve and do on-chain money markets or looping or farming points campaigns, or doing like whatever it is that they're going to do. I think they're going to have to go out on the risk curve and justify it that way, and probably that'll happen. I don't know. What do you think, Jordi?
Yeah, I guess like we've seen like 𝗕𝗓𝗪 and some of these ones be talking about doing much more creative strategies than just staking. So we may see more of that, but I agree. Right now, there's just a lot of bull market hype talk. But look, the reality is, though, there are, as Jose said, there are greater fools on the equity markets. I was surprised. I participated in some of the recent IPOs of crypto companies, and yeah, like those first candles are just like Binance. You get like the thing just wicks up to limit up, and then it slowly settles down. And who's buying it at 4 times the price? I don't know, but these people exist. They're out there. We've seen it with the traditional IPOs. And I think, the people, we've seen the WorldCoin one go out a few days ago, and that just had insane volume. I mean, that thing just was unbelievable. what happened on that?
I just feel sorry for these guys. I feel sorry for these guys. I mean, this is 𝗕𝗏𝗏.
I don't know who they are.
They bought 𝗕𝗏𝗏 at $125. Yeah. $125. Things trading at $16 today. I shouldn't laugh. But
this is why when crypto, there's almost like the crypto bear that asks like about every coin or thesis or whatever, like, who is the marginal buyer for this? Like, it sounds really smart, but it's like, I don't know who the marginal buyer is, but they show up. They show up every time, like on Binance, on the stock market. Like, there are marginal buyers,
I need them to show up because I'm quite long these things, and I need someone to show up to buy my bag. So, I mean, if
you're long with DATs?
Yeah, I am, because I got involved in a lot of the DATs. The BNB one, we got involved in the TON one, we got involved in the SUI one. because these were early DAT days, and now they're all trading at under NAV. They're literally all trading at under NAV. So the TON one is slightly under NAV, the SUI one is slightly under NAV, the BNB one is not under NAV, but it's also the only one that hasn't released the shares yet. Because there's like that 45-day period where they register the shares or whatever, and that's the only one that hasn't actually released the shares yet. So as soon as the guys get their shares, they seem to be dumping, and then you're basically left with holding DATs at under NAV. Which
I
is
think there'll be an interesting. Maybe 𝗕𝗁𝗁𝗁 will bid our BNB ones, and we have a saying here in Singapore. Whenever this situation comes, we just all the investors, we just get together and we say, one last pump. That's what we need. We just need one last pump.
I'll hold it for a last pump. Let's move on. I want to talk about the cycle, and the reason why I want to talk about the cycle is because that yesterday the altcoin season indicator, I hate this indicator, by the way, and it flashed that it's actually alt season. 75 of the top altcoins are now outperforming Bitcoin, which actually means that technically it is actually alt season. Now, the thing that worries me about the fact that it's alt season is it's alt season and it's early September, and that could signal that if it's true, and if I look at the data of other alt seasons, which last about 6.9 weeks, 7 weeks, that takes us to about end of October or November. And if we go to November, then that kind of like a lot of people are saying November could be the end of the cycle. I'm really keen to hear your views as to like whether you believe that the cycle could top in the next 2 months. That's like that is the end of the 4-year cycle. Like if you're playing the 4-year cycle game, that is the end of the 4-year cycle. It's 575 days after halving. Very keen to hear whether this time's different or whether this time's not different. Jose, I'm going to start with you, sir.
I don't really believe in the 4-year cycle thing going forward. I think it's just like a meme. Maybe there's some reflexivity which like ends up making it come true. But I don't believe in the 4-year cycle anymore. I think crypto is so much. The halving is like just way less consequential than it used to be, given how much is going on in crypto. We have like ETFs. We have a bunch of institutions bidding. We have so many more coins doing so much different stuff that should be completely uncorrelated to the Bitcoin halving. Yeah, I don't believe in the 4-year cycle. In terms of where we are, I honestly am not too sure. Like I go back and forth. I'll wake up sort of bullish one day and then a bit more bearish the other. I think it's if I had to say, I'd say we're sort of late. There are some signs of froth, clearly, like pockets of froth, like the DATs are a prime example of that, but there are others like Pokemon cards and things like this. But I don't think this is the I definitely don't think we've topped yet. And I also think there's just going to be massive dispersion. Like I think there are things that are just executing extremely well, and that are going to be I just think we're going to continue to have massive dispersion. Like there's already been an alt season if you were in the right names, right? And I think that'll probably
Hyperliquid, Solana, Pump.fun, Athena.
Yeah, those are my those are probably my 4 biggest positions you named. Very, very uncreative and consensus, but I just think crypto there's like 3 use cases that people have been proven that they're willing to pay for, right? It's like perps trading, stable coins,
meme coins,
and token creation, right? And like the 3 biggest applications this cycle, I think the 3 most successful applications were in those 3 use cases, and I think all 3 of them have like meaningful narratives. Like not only are they doing like legitimate, well, revenue is in Athena's case, there's no 𝗙𝗁𝗁 switch yet, but not only are they seeing meaningful fundamental growth, I think they also have a lot of room to expand. Like Hyperliquid with HIP-3 going into other assets. Pump has $2 billion in the bag and like massive ambitions to actually build a social network, right? And I think if you listen to the podcast that we did with Noah on the 𝗕𝗏𝗪 podcast, I think that really comes across. And the same with Athena, obviously, kind of going after one of the biggest times in crypto. So yeah, I'm curious what Jordi thinks actually of the cycle, but I'm not sure. I think it's late, but not over, at least for this leg of it.
I mean, I guess the way to ask it is, do you think the cycle ends before the end of the year or after the end of the year? I think that's the binary question.
I just don't think we get an end to the cycle because the US debt situation is fucked. And so this concept that you can't stop this train, we're just going to have to keep devaluing, and there's going to be more and more speculation, more and more gambling, and crypto is just growing in so many avenues, whether it's institutional, whether it's, more speculative. There's too many things going on. There's also too many names. So I agree with the dispersion. I mean, there's so many tokens. There's new ones coming out. Upbit listed like 6 tokens this week. I've never seen that in my life. They usually list like one a week. There's just more and more places and things. So not everything's going to be able to do well. A lot of these things are going to die. That's undoubtedly to me. So I do think that this like alt season is going to end. I think Bitcoin is going to be back in the driver's seat pretty soon. There's a rate cut cycle coming, and that's sort of getting priced in. But I think that gold is doing much better than stocks, and kind of we've always seen Bitcoin catch up to gold in recent years. So I'm a little bit more on the Bitcoin side than the alts, but I don't think there's like a death to the cycle coming. We're just gonna keep going. There's no Q1, Q2. It's just crypto is just gonna keep going.
So you're calling for the longer cycle, so to speak.
Yeah, the super cycle. We're in the
That's
super
the Bitcoin.
cycle.
By the way, this is the Bitcoin against gold chart. And if you look at the Bitcoin against gold chart, it's like coming up against this, like, I'm just going to draw it a little better for us, but like it usually bounces off this resistance. And that shows when we're getting onto like real risk on territory. So this was December. So you can kind of see what happened here in December and what caused it here. So this chart's actually quite telling of whether people are going risk on or risk off.
I really think that we're within a month of going back to like a Bitcoin led market. I think maybe there's a few more, you have the Solana DATs. Those are big. You just gotta, obviously like they have to filter through. There's a few more decent sized ones happening, but I think we're going back to the basics soon.
What do you think about this? Do you think that I saw there was one, I'm trying to find the tweet, but Avalanche looking to raise $1 billion debt. Like, do you see $1 billion of demand from TradFi for Avalanche? Like, no disrespect to Avalanche, I'm just kind of wondering whether I'm missing something here. I get how Solana can raise $1 billion.
Yeah, you have to look at like how much cash is going in versus tokens. There's locked tokens. There's other stuff happening. So I don't know exactly the numbers of this one. We haven't looked at them. We haven't wall crossed, so I don't really know what's happening. But we've been surprised sometimes that some of them manage to get a lot of cash in somehow. So there's still a lot of money out there. It's been hard to predict exactly.
I agree with you. Obviously that's been like my main thesis in crypto is you can't stop the train. I'd say that the only difference for me between this time and sort of the last few years or like the last cycle is that it does feel like in 2017, 2020, 2021, crypto was like the most exciting thing that was happening in the world, and like the thing that people had the biggest dreams and ambitions about. I think venture was very much in a lull. Like you had big tech just kind of crushing it, and like the venture was just basically like SaaS, and there was like a malaise, I think, in venture generally, that like what are we funding? What does all this stuff do? And crypto is like the new exciting thing. Whereas now I do think it's never been more exciting time in venture generally, and there's a lot of cash plowing into obviously the AI labs, which still, even their cumulative valuation is like less than a quarter of crypto's market cap, right? And I think that ratio I would be bullish on that ratio continuing to grow. But then you have all the robotics stuff, a bunch of biotech stuff that's happening and being accelerated by AI, and so I just feel like there's more like narrative split for the cash that wants to chase sort of the most exciting narrative that will protect you against debasement, right? The most exciting asset to be in that's going to protect you against debasement. And I think Bitcoin's still going to crush it as just a better goal, the same thesis as before. But I do think that's the only thing that makes me slightly less bullish and less sure than I've been my entire time in crypto so far. I'm curious how you see it, because I know you're also looking at a lot of AI, Jordi.
Yeah, I mean, undoubtedly, there's a competition for share and for, but I like AI. We invest in AI. Obviously, like, you know, intersections like WorldCoin, things like this, it can be more relevant. I think there's going to be some killer apps that get unleashed that will be crypto based. We've seen some really cool traditional apps that are using AI, and I think just porting those things to Web3 and adding a few like improvements will do really well. But I agree with you. We have to be like realistic. Outside of, you know, digital gold, everything else is going to have to fight with AI and hopefully combine with it.
Well, I mean, I kind of agree with you, but on most of these AI plays, it's going to be a long time before you see any kind of liquidity. And when you talk crypto, you're trading an almost liquid market. Maybe it's not immediately liquid, but it's almost liquid. You know, SAFTs are pretty much liquid with it's some kind of discount. Tokens get listed pretty quickly nowadays. But like the difference, I mean, we also invest in AI, and the thing with our AI investments is you kind of know you're not going to get any value out of them for the next 5 years, or any liquidity out of them for the next 5 years, or at least that's what I'm seeing.
I don't know. People like to rush to IPO sometimes. Like, we might get like a wave of them. And it's just like crypto. We had one successful Circle IPO, and then suddenly like everyone's just, okay, now it's time. Let's go. We'll just get our stuff ready, and we're jumping in. We're seeing so many of them now. I think it's going to happen on the AI side as soon as one of them, you know, whether it's Anthropic or OpenAI, or one of them just decides to go. But there are a lot of other sectors. I think the one caveat I would say is like, maybe you know, the private companies are only a quarter of crypto, but obviously you have things like Tesla and Google and all these like massive companies, NVIDIA. These are all just pricing in AI based sort of revenue, and those are huge. I mean, crypto is still smaller than all of these. You know, like you look at Microsoft, you look at all of these companies, all of crypto is still smaller than a single one of these companies. So yeah, room to go. Still room to go. And okay. I'm liking some of the innovations that are happening in crypto these days. Like finally, it feels like the RWA sector is becoming like less BS, and like some of the things are going to be usable on chain.
Like the Pokemon card stuff.
I haven't followed that, but I think Jose knows.
I mean, hold on. I know we're laughing about it, but I actually kind of like the thesis. I got to be honest. Like, I know we all like laugh, but I mean, the Pokemon market's huge. It is a huge. It's the biggest media franchise in the world at the moment, and I know how hard it is to trade Pokemon cards because my kids trade them. And so, like, putting the cards in a vault somewhere in Oregon or wherever the vault is here, and issuing people with an on-chain token, which is representative of a card inside a vault somewhere. I think that's actually quite serious business, because it's not only Pokemon cards; it's any kind of collectible. So I can be in Japan and I can be trading a collectible of a Pokemon card that is, or a baseball card or whatever it is that is stored in the US. I think that's a very big, like, I know we laugh at that as not really being a real world asset market, but I think it's a serious real world asset market. It's very similar to the gold thesis, you know, where like the gold is stored in a central bank. You never carry the gold, but you have an IOU around the gold. I don't see it as very different.
You're saying that Charizard is digital gold? Is that what you're saying?
Well, to my kids, he definitely is. Definitely. I mean, a Mewtwo or a Charizard or whatever it is. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you that there are some more innovations. I agree with you that there's a lot of real world asset stuff actually coming on chain, and I want to get there. I guess that's probably a good time to talk about backing winners and who the winners are of the cycle. And I must say, like, one of the things that I put my hand on my heart and I admit is that for the last two cycles, and even the December 2024 cycle, which I'm calling like the third part of the cycle, I was always chasing shiny objects. So I did chase meme coins, and I played a lot in meme coins, and I did chase AI agents. I think Jordi, I think we spoke about this at Satoshi Roundtable around the AI narrative and whatever else. And then like I kind of realized now that the best way to make money is to actually back the winners. And if you don't think you're going to get a very good return on the winners, just take 2x leverage and then just back the winner with 2x leverage versus going to try and find something with double the risk. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's been, for me, the biggest learning. Having been here for 3 cycles, that for me is the biggest learning. Just back the fucking winners. and don't go and take all these tiny bets, because you don't really have much to show for them afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy if you know who the winners are to back them. I think it's just figuring it out before it's fully priced in is sort of like, I guess, like why we do shows like this and try to
let's
talk
do
to
that.
each other.
Let's do that. So let's do that. So what are the winners that are not fully priced in by the market? Like it feels like the Soluna Vax. Oh, remember we had the Sol Luna Vax of 2021. It feels like the Soluna Vax of this cycle are Athena, Solana, Pump, Hype, maybe.
Yeah. Look, I'm always like a bit more on the skeptical side of a lot of these, and so I'm not really going to be able to make a bull case too strongly for things that have already kind of priced in a lot. I think the ones that are going to be interesting might be some of the new chains that haven't launched yet, but they're very close to launching. I think in the next 4 months, we're going to get some interesting launches. Finally, it's been a bit of a quiet market for launches, but I think we'll see some interesting new blockchains come up.
Like
everything
what?
from
Are you talking about what's man, the one with the M? Monad. Monad.
Yeah, Monad's going to be interesting. I think it's obviously been in development for a long time, waiting to see. But depending on how their tech actually looks when it's fully live and where it opens and price, but that, obviously it's an interesting one. Mega ETH we'll take a look at, certainly. There's some interesting new ones. There's one called Realo. I don't know if you've seen the announcement, but I angeled in this one, and it's like a Sui next evolution potentially.
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you an honest question? Do we really need more blockchains? Like, I'm asking an honest, serious question. Like, Solana's fast, Solana's cheap. Sui is user-friendly, fast and cheap. Like, you've got Base, which is fast, cheap, and secured by ETH. Like, what else do you need, honestly? Like, what should... honestly, my investment thesis has now moved beyond blockchain. And I've gone into things like Pump.fun, things like Athena, infrastructure on blockchains versus blockchains. I don't... And we've been approached by a lot of these deals. And I was like, I just don't get why you need to exist. Like, help me understand why we need more block space and why we need faster block space.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we need generic block space. And I've always kind of shat on this A16 notion that there's not enough block space. The world is run out of secure block space. Like, I don't believe that. Obviously, you look at all the L2s that are out there. There's a lot of block space. I think the chains that are exciting are the ones that have technological advancements, and less so like something like Barrett Chain is a nice community, and they did some cool stuff. We participated some of the yield farming and stuff, but to really make like a dent, I think the technology has to be a step change. I think Hyperliquid did some step changes. I think it was mainly like just a very good product on the DEX side. That's really like the main thing. That
do you think it's fully valued or overvalued at the moment? At 50
I think
billion?
It's fully valued. Yeah, 50's like, I've talked about selling it, buying it, chasing it up sometimes because the fundamentals get better, and you're like, okay, 38, I used to sell it. Now I want to buy it back at 38 because the revenue's up. But if you look at the revenue, it's not going to be like over $1 billion. And so, that's a big PE ratio. Obviously, there's market cap, there's fully diluted. Are they going to do another airdrop? Like, imagine they're kind of stuck, right? Like, if they do another airdrop, obviously the price is going to tank. So they kind of screw over their token holders. But then if they don't do another airdrop, that's in the tokenomics. People are trying to get more people are trying to farm it. And then they don't do it. People are going to be pissed off. Someone else, Lighter is going to do it. And then they're going to say that there's... So
I'm laughing.
They're in a tricky spot. But obviously they've executed pretty well. I think some of the... What's up?
We had this exact discussion. Me and you were sitting outside the restaurant in Dubai at that hotel. And we had this exact discussion around the airdrop, but it was a mantra. And you said to me, they're stuck in between a rock and a hard place because as soon as they do the airdrop, they're going to lose control of their token supply. And then the thing's going to fall into a heap. I don't know if you remember that discussion. We were sitting
I
outside.
remember very vividly. Yeah, I was trying to warn a bit on that one. That one had a much lower float. I mean, Hyperliquid has a big float, so even if they do an extra 5%, something like that, it's not going to destroy it. It'll like 𝗕16𝗪 might come in and buy it up. Who knows? But it'll still affect the price because 5% airdrop would still be a couple $2 billion, right?
Yes.
And people are always looking to gang up, and you guys remember from like Luna days and other days, people really become very tribal about their blockchain that they support, and these .HLs now are becoming just like, I'm getting flashbacks of like the 21 cycle people, whether it was AVAX or different ones, and they're just being so ridiculous. I guess it's just human nature, but when you see that, you're not early, right? Because that's a sign that it's sort of seeped into people's bones.
Jose, what do you think? Do you think Hype's fully priced?
I don't think it's fully priced, but I think in general on these names, like maybe except Pump, it's people have had a lot of time. Like I think they're all pretty well priced. I do think they still like Hyperliquid still has some upside left, but like it's
Coinbase market cap.
Coinbase
market cap $80 billion. Hype market cap $54 billion.
Yeah.
FDV.
I mean,
FDV.
Both. I mean, I'm comparing FDV on both.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not like I don't know. I think this is I would not be chasing it here. This is probably more of a time to be selling stuff you bought a while ago rather than chasing.
Jordi, let's talk about 𝗪𝗛𝗄. 𝗪𝗛𝗄's had amazing performance for the last while, and primarily because they've now kind of not admitted, but come out and kind of said like, this is the Bybit token, and so here we are. Is there value in this thing at a 10 billion fully diluted?
There's obviously a lot of tokens that are on Bybit's balance sheet that they're not going to be selling, right? That if you remember, like it's like a third of them are there. It's not like there's 10 billion of tokens that can be sold, and I think this repricing is natural given that Bybit has decided to step in and say, okay, it's always been this weird separation between the two where they've been run somewhat partnered but somewhat independently, and people haven't taken the token as being serious because on the one hand it's a Bybit affiliate, so it doesn't get listed on Binance. It's competitive to the other exchanges. They don't want to list it, but then it's not been fully embraced. And I think now that it's fully embraced, the market is finally sort of saying, okay, this is like BNB, and it's trading at 1/10 of BNB. Bybit is obviously like more than 1/10 of Binance. It's not as big as Binance, but it's more than 10% of Binance when you look at all the volumes and all the things going on. So I'm holding. I'm in the reward station, getting some yield. I'm happy that this is repricing, and
is there still upside? Is there still upside at 10 billion?
I think there's still some upside. I mean, obviously, we just had like a 60% move, so some of it's surely priced in. I think it sort of depends on what they come out and say exactly in terms of, what's the actual fee situation from Bybit. Are they going to do any kind of specific discounts that you have to hold it, or like any buyback? Who knows? So it all sort of depends. No one knows the answer apart from the Bybit, decision committee on what they're going to do with the token. So I don't know.
Let me ask you a question. Why for the exchange? Why not just launch an exchange token? Why muddy it with L2? Like, is there any value to?
I mean, BNB. What is BNB? Like, how is BNB any different?
I get it. That was a different time. That was a time when exchange tokens were feared to be securities, and security tokens were very, very. People were very, very scared of them, and so. One game you could play was you could create a chain and you could create it as the gas token, and you could disguise the security in the gas token. But like times have changed, right?
But they take BSC very seriously even today. I mean, they're constantly like trying to get projects to go there and pitching them and doing all these incubations. So they
Yes.
take it very seriously. I don't think it's like a just legal thing.
And I mean,
It's
do you
about
think
having
that
like it's about having more more synergies with exchange.
but do you think that Bybit's is gonna take their L2 as seriously as Binance took BNB?
Well, I mean, the token is being taken very seriously, as you can see. So they're pushing that hard. Mantle was never just meant to be an L2. It has different products. It has staking products. Now they have like a bank product. So they'll have a lot of potential avenues to collaborate on. And yeah, I think it makes sense now what they're doing.
Okay. So what else are you guys looking at that you guys feel are the cycle winners and that where there may be some value left? I mean, I know the Athena guys are executing like beasts, and Jose, I know you're very close to them, and they're executing like absolute beasts. Like that for me is an all or nothing. It's one of our biggest holdings, and it's an all or nothing. Either these guys succeed in getting it right, and so far they're making all the right moves, or they don't, and then it doesn't take off. I've made the bet, as I think you have too, is that these guys execute very well, and so it's probably worth being in there, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was it got to be an extremely big position for me, and so have trimmed a little bit. It's still my largest holding, but have definitely trimmed a little bit over the last few days or so. But I just think
it's always a good problem. It's like, oh man, this bag of money is so heavy. I got to throw some out because it's too heavy. I can't.
You know what?
I
maximum respect after what happened to me on Luna. After what happened to me on Luna in the 2021 cycle, respect, bro. The fact that you could take your favorite token and exit. I
like it.
I did something similar, but on Solana. Like I had Solana was my biggest position by far. And I'd still back Sol as the biggest, the best, the one. But I exited some. Why? Because it was just ridiculously big relative to the rest of my portfolio, and I have PTSD from Luna days. I can't do that again. Can't go through that again.
Yeah, me too. I try and start somewhere around like half or quarter Kelly, depending on, and then just let it run. But yeah, trim some. I do think they're like executing at the highest level of like any team in crypto. Like, so kind of happy and proud of those guys. Like they're just crushing it. In what I think is one of the biggest TAMs as well. I think the next big thing there is just the stablecoin X launch. Like, very curious to see whether, I mean, Circle's come down a lot from where it was, which is, I think, unfortunate for the comp. It is like a more attractive. I mean, there's just different ways to look at this, but yeah, I think that's like going to be really interesting. They've managed to raise, I guess, like 600 or so.
Yeah, 500
in cash.
But 500 is one check, right?
Kind.
Isn't 500 one check?
It was 550 mil in tokens and in ENA and cash, but all the ENA was liquid ENA, so it's still meaningful because you're locking up, Circ. There wasn't like these locked ENA shenanigans on this, and so but there's a lot of cash. They managed to raise like something around $600 million in cash. I think that's sort of like over 10% of the circulating supply. And this thing is going to go out at around, $1 billion or so in I guess a little bit more than $1 billion in MNAV. If they can trade above MNAV and issue ATMs or do other stuff, like tap the debt markets, do some cool stuff, and keep raising at this rate, it's very significant, right? Just because the circulating supply is so small, the circulating market cap is so small in comparison. It's one of the only DATs that has that sort of potential, I think. And I was going to say something else, but I forgot what it was.
All right, so Athena, one of your biggest bags. What else? What else are you guys looking at?
Pump is my second biggest bag now. Just I entered. I did the ICO, and then I entered on perps, like probably about 5 cents, and then just kept averaging down. And yeah, it became one of my, and I was now with it, performance has become my second biggest position.
Me too.
I still think it has room to run. I haven't sold any. I think they like so mismanaged the loan. Like my only fear was basically I was having like friend tech, like sort of like flashbacks in my head, because like friend tech was the quickest money I've ever lost in crypto. And that's saying a lot, you know. Like it was, and there was the flashbacks of like, you know, they have a lot of money in the equity, but there's no token. They have no incentive to pump the token, and it's this social thing. And like I don't know, this is the only reason I didn't go even bigger. But I have a lot more confidence in the team now, both because I have spoken to some people that know them well. Our team has spoken to them, have listened to them on podcasts and stuff. I think they really want to win. They're not here for the exit scam or to live off these $2 billion or whatever. And I think they're really ambitious. Like they actually want to make this a huge thing outside of crypto. I don't know if you listen to the podcast, but he was basically shitting on every single crypto company and app. Like even Coinbase, he's like, you're basically a Bitcoin wallet and you built like a shitty exchange. Like no one's managed to break out. We want to actually break out, actually target, you know, Gen Z and streamers and stuff like that.
I did listen.
And I kind of buy that. I buy that. I like the ambition. And I think at this price with the, like, I don't know, $500 million or whatever revenue run rate, one of the top 3 most successful apps this cycle. And if you just think about it, they are like, if they did an L1, which they could do at any point, like a Solana fork or something like this, what would the sort of repricing be? You know, because they basically could do that, right? They have all the users. Or if they did perps on top, like what would the repricing look like? And I just think they're in a really strong position. Is kind of my take on them.
Agree. Jordi, what do you think of Pump?
Yeah, it was weird that it went so low, right? So
Yeah,
we bought a lot in the 2s. We just kind of like in disbelief as of what was happening. Like people thought they were just hard drugging or something. Like that, you know, that didn't seem to be the case. So you know, it was a good trade. Now it gets back into the territory where it was, you know, after the launch. We're kind of in that price range now. Obviously, we just had Upbit and Binance List. It seemed like that was front run a bit because it actually sold off in the news. I think all that matters now is like, can they kind of keep the casino game interesting and just keep getting people engaging and users. So if their numbers go up, then it's going to be extremely cheap. Like it's going to look ridiculously cheap. If their numbers go down, then suddenly you're not sure on the multiple. So it just depends on their execution now.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. I mean, my best trade this year was actually long Pump and short bonk. And I did that when the bonk trade was at its peak, somewhere around here. And Pump had just launched. And everyone was saying bonk's the new Pump, blah, blah. And I went long Pump, short bonk. And that's been, to be honest, that's been my biggest or most successful crypto trade ever. Is to buy Pump at on the 2.6s and 2.7s. And then I don't remember the exact time when I started shorting bonk, but it was somewhere over here. And that's been my absolute biggest trade, like, of my life. Yeah, and I'm actually I've cut the short here, and I'm just riding the longs on Pump now because I finished that trade. What else are you guys looking at that seems to be that seems to be underpriced, undervalued, underappreciated? Give us like one 𝗙𝗫 alpha before we go, like one 𝗙𝗫 alpha for each. It would be so nice to just get like, you know, something just before the weekend. You know what I'm saying?
I have a bunch, but they're all pretty small. I don't want to, you know, they're all in this sort of sub 1 billion range.
That's good. We like those. We like those stinky ones. We actually prefer under 100 million. But I mean, if you're going to go under 1 billion, we'll forgive you. We're all big people here. So.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's some tokens that have launched recently that are maybe like not picked up yet. They a bit under the radar. We think they're gonna have some good moment. I think there's so many launches that happening now. There's so many mid-sized launches, like in that sort of like 9-figure range happening, that, you know, some of them get drowned out. Yeah,
give me some examples. Come on, Jordi. You're teasing us so badly. Like, give us one or two.
We invested in 𝗕𝗵𝗆, which is, you know, like a very legitimate Bitcoin L2.
The bridge.
𝗦𝗫𝗍. This is like a Bitcoin layer 2 with Bitcoin core dev that Binance is, you know, invested in. This is like a a prime token that seems to be a very like normal token, and they haven't really like launched on spot. They're like an alpha. I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but it's near the investment round, which was like at 300 million. So it's trading liquid around the VC round, and they just haven't done their Binance listing yet. I'm not sure what's going on. So it's a high risk, high reward situation, but we're not quite sure what's going on. But we bought some.
Okay. I mean, look, I know the guys. I know the guys at 𝗕𝗵. I know the guys at 𝗕𝗵. These are serious players. I can tell you, I know them very, very well. The whole team, very strong players. Multiple successes, multiple experiments, multiple successes, few failures under their belt. These are Matt Rozak. This is it's Jeff. There's like, these are proper guys. So and I do think that they're going to pick up. I think if I were to give them one bit of feedback, is they're not great marketers. They're very good tech people, but not great marketers. And I think if they can get the 𝗕𝗵 message out, there, I think 𝗕𝗵 is definitely one to look at. And as you say, what most people don't realize is that the VCs and the investors paid 300 million fully diluted for locked up tokens. It's trading at 400 million for unlocked tokens. Like, I think that's if you do believe in it, to buy the unlocked at 0.04 is a great deal.
Yeah, do some research and look into exactly what's happening there. But these are the kind of things that we're looking at for value, where they're just trading cheap, and maybe the market picks up on them, and they sort of start executing. More like you said, more market, like more awareness. They got to get the mind share. Like, they don't have the mind share, but they have other tech pieces. So this is the kind of stuff. And I mentioned 𝗬𝗏 as well. It's not live yet, but that's another one that we think the tech might be, quite revolutionary. So we'll see.
Okay, Jose, what are you looking at that's less cheap?
Honestly, there's nothing else that I really like. I'm spending a lot of time on AI and stuff like that. And so for crypto things, I generally try not to take positions if it's under 5% of PA, and ideally like something closer to 10%. I just find that I don't care otherwise, and I end up just like, because I have full-time work with labs and ventures that I'm doing, and I just struggle to pay attention if it's under that. And there hasn't been anything that has caught my attention. I mean, I have it on my list, and I've been starting to look into Fluid. It's a team that we've known for ages, like back when they were InstaDApp, I think. Back in the day. Yeah, we looked at their first raise and actually didn't get into it, unfortunately, but really like the team, and I think they've been like really crushing it. So I'm having on my list to look into that. It's just hard for me to get excited about DeFi stuff at this point, or to trade into things for like a 2x or 1.5x. I think I have a different kind of profile on that than what Jordi and 𝗕𝗵 look at in terms of trading these things, because I'm just not as active. So it's hard for me to play that way. I prefer to take large positions and hold them for a while for like multiples. And generally I'm running like four or so positions, or 5 positions. But yeah, there's also really like, we did a podcast with Yield Basis. I think that's going to be a really exciting one. It's not out yet.
Yield Basis.
But it's
Yield Basis.
Yeah.
It's 𝗏𝗏𝗪 from Curve's new project.
Okay. Yeah, I know.
And so it's basically eliminating IL on Bitcoin and giving you like single-sided yield on Bitcoin. You can think of it as like Athena for Bitcoin, but decentralized, as in it runs sort of on smart contracts on chain. It's a lot of moon math. He goes over it in the podcast. There's like questions about whether it works, how well it works. But I think if it does work, it's just like a massive TAM, like one that's really exciting.
What do you think of Curve? I mean, like for me, I've got a thesis around Curve being, you're gonna have all these fucking stable coins. You're gonna have, everyone's launching a stable coin now, and you're gonna need somewhere to trade these stable coins with very, very, very low slippage and stuff like that. Like, that was my thesis for buying Curve, and I hold a lot of Curve actually on that thesis. And I'm kind of wondering whether it's still a thesis.
I think Fluid's winning a lot of market share there. Actually, that's partly what got me looking at it. I just end up getting rooted through it a lot for stable swaps. and it's cheap or relatively cheap. It's like a $600 million FDV. I haven't looked at Curve in a while to see like volumes and stuff. In general, yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I think just the market moved away from caring about something being fully decentralized and on chain. Like, people just accept these like basically off-chain solver model. And if like, it's just the reality of things. Like, if we'd said it a year ago, whatever, people never would have thought it, but it's the reality of things. And so I think it's very hard for the AMM models to compete in a world like that and offer better execution, honestly, than yeah.
And I've just
man, the good thing about Selenium and 𝗕ልphi is that if we don't get excited about what we see, we just start fucking building it ourselves. And I think that there's a couple categories. I saw one of the other guys at 𝗕lphi was tweeting. I can't remember which one it was, but they were saying that something exciting is like AI asset management. And when you look at it from first principles perspective, everyone has money. There's financial assets, and then we all want somewhere to invest it. We need. Some of us are not professional investors. We need some help. There's all these vaults now. You put it in the Veda vault, and that's cool. I think like these building blocks are what crypto is really good at, and what AI can facilitate. So I think some apps where everybody can just have a really good financial manager, and it's AI, crypto, ZK, everything, whatever you need, has all those pieces. So that's something we might be incubating, and they might, we'll work on it.
I'll show one of the things we're building an almanac. They just did a sale on Legion, but the points campaign is still live. It's exactly what you're talking about. It's actually a team that came from Labs. Lars, the CTO, was probably one of the best engineers we've ever worked with at Labs, just a machine. And Michael was on the risk team, also a beast. And they're building that. Like, so they started off building basically an environment for agent-based simulations, and they started building this like 3 or 4 years ago, and it basically ended up being the perfect platform to build like AI strategies on. So they have like AI managed vaults and the ability for you to either self-host them or run them on their platform. I think they have about 40 million in TVL right now and 2 stablecoin strategies. But they've basically built like a chat GPT for on-chain agent creation. So you can literally chat to it and say, I want to do a looped PT strategy on Aave or whatever. And then it will like think about it, bundle some actions together, and then you can check it and like deploy it. And the idea is you can either run them yourself or eventually have other people.
We have to go like one step further though. I mean, most people don't even know what, hey, make me a chat looped, they just want to say, here's money, here's my risk tolerance, here's the return I want to make, answer a questionnaire. Like, you got to answer a questionnaire, personalize it. That's the whole AI bit. And then it's sort of like does something smart, and it just abstracts everything, because people don't, most people.
Have you ever seen that
meme?
You
need the strategy building blocks first.
Yeah. Have you ever seen that meme? That meme on
it. Yeah.
Have you ever seen that meme on Instagram where it's 2 Indian guys and they're speaking into a phone, and he says, "Show me a way to make money. No hard work needed. No hard work needed. No upfront thing. Can do it off the beach." It's like they're talking to the AI. Anyway, guys, listen, we're out of time. It's been amazing. I love catching up with you guys. Jordi, I'm sure I'll catch up with you in person in Singapore. Jose, we'll miss you there. I guess, I'll probably catch up with you at some stage soon. Guys, thank you so much. Yeah. What a great way to end the week. Much love to you guys from the Banter fam. We love you guys. We love having you guys on. Thank you so much, guys.
Cheers, guys.
See you.
All right, and to you guys, much love to you guys too. I'll see you guys again on the weekend. We're doing a bot workshop. There is a link below to that show, or there will be a link below to that show or times, where we're going to clean up all our bots and make sure that our Pi-Next bots are absolutely beautiful for the next part of the cycle. So I'll see you guys back on the weekend. Until then, trade well, my friends.